Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Worth Fighting For. I'm Brian. I'm joined, as always, by Tamur. Tamur, how you doing?
What's up, Brian? Glad to be back. Feel like it's been a little while, but really excited to get back into it.
Yes, the age of prestige television means that it's been like 2 years since The Last of Us was on. So, right before we came on, you said hopefully you're not rusty. I hope so too. I hope we get back into the swing of things because I felt like as that season went on, we were getting into a good groove, and then 2-year break, which is weird, but we are back now. And I guess just right off the top, how'd you like the first episode of season two?
So, as we'll discuss, I have sort of mixed feelings, but I want to start off with the positive and just say I think it's a really faithful adaptation and kind of continuing with season one. Season one was just I think it's been said before, but I think really is the best adaptation of a video game in cinematic form, and I think season two is gonna kind of hold that title, keep the title, if you will. And so I thought it was really strong. Again, staying positive at first, but I do have some nitpicky kind of notes about where the show is going and kind of the changes they made, but I liked it overall. I really did.
Yeah, I did too. I thought it was a really strong premiere. I thought the stuff that they adapted directly from the video game was really, really well done. Then they had some changes where I do feel like they are trying to pad it out a little bit. From the game, which I think is fine. I think, it works well. I'm like, I try to watch it in the mindset of someone who's only watching it as a show, hasn't played the video game at all. And like, what would I expect from this? Like, I've watched, like, say I'm someone who watched The Walking Dead. It's like, okay, like I kind of do expect an episode like this where now we're just kind of in the life of these survivors in, their wherever they're living in the moment right now. It's Jackson. Who knows what will happen for the rest of the season? But I think from that point of view, it was strong, and then it did add a lot of good follow up from last season's ending. So I think if you haven't played the game, you probably were like, that was a good first episode back.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I kind of have to think about the show that way. It's like, it's a show, and can it stand on its own outside of the video games? And to me, I think there's certain changes that they've made that, if I can look at it objectively as much as possible, I wonder if they do work. You know, jumping to Jackson so soon when there's like a zombie apocalypse. The show is about like the end of the world, a zombie apocalypse, and right off the bat, season two, it's kind of like, all right, they're in a pretty safe place. At least confident enough to kill these zombies. Um, with like almost weird like teenage glee, which I think is great. But I'm also like, is it too soon to be kind of at the beginning of season two, um, to be already at that point? I kind of almost wish they milk the show a little bit more and kind of split the first game up into two seasons. And I mean, this kind of relates to like the biggest note I have about the show in general, which is that the relationship between Joel and Ellie, I mean, that's really where the heart of the game is. But I don't know if I've seen it enough in the TV show in the first season. And yeah, I'm curious what you think about this. But I feel like, kind of, having played the game, we know that like Joel and Ellie have this they're starting to kind of split apart emotionally, and we'll discover why down the road. But we haven't really seen them together. Even in season one, we kind of only had maybe, I don't know, probably four solid episodes out of nine where they were really together. We have these other episodes where there's other characters, and anyway, I'm curious to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, I think it's hard because like if you just do what the story beats are in the game, it's like you really didn't spend that much time Yeah, I was actually looking because I downloaded the game to capture some footage for a video that I did, and like my playtime is like 12 hours on the first game, and it's like it felt like so much more, but like I guess it really wasn't,
Hmm.
you know.
Right.
Um, and so like with the TV show, it's hard because you're not playing as Joel, where you like feel more connected to Ellie. So I do hope that this season they're able to build it out more. I don't want to. It's hard to dance around stuff that I know will probably be incorporated. So, like for this episode, we're trying to be as spoiler free for the beginning of it, and then we'll talk more from the perspective of people who've played the games and how's that is being adapted in the second half of it. So I'll probably answer that a little bit deeper in that segment. Um, because it is hard where it's like we had season one and then this is 5 years later. No one really looks 5 years older. So that's hard. Whereas the game, Ellie really did look 5 years older
Hmm.
in the second game in a way that you couldn't really do for Bella Ramsey, like aging
Hmm.
her, even though it was like 2 years. It's or aging them rather. Um, it's just like hard to portray
Yeah.
it in the same way. You know.
I will say they do a really great job, sort of, compensating for that with like just vocally. I feel like there were so many times where they really sounded like Ellie in part two of the game, and it was like almost striking. I was like, did they like, take audio from the game, or did they have, the actress Ashley Johnson like come in and yeah? But clearly they didn't. But it was like really amazing how they really like use their voice to basically portray a 5 year difference. Yeah, and I think Bella Ramsey gets a lot of hate online. I think it's totally
Yes.
unjustified, and
Yeah.
I really hate it when I'm on Reddit and I see these things. So just to kind of let people know where I personally stand, I think they're really such a great choice for Ellie, and really amazing actor. And I think we'll see this season that Ellie has so much more emotional depth.
Mm.
I mean, you kind of get that at the end of season one, but really in part two, in the game at least, Ellie has so much depth, and yeah, we'll see where it goes, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think like the people who are like, well, Bella Ramsey doesn't look like the character model of Ellie. It's like that is true. Yes. But remember, we cast Ashley Johnson as Ellie's mom. Bella Ramsey does look like Ashley Johnson, and like in a
Mhm.
way where it's like
Right,
this could be Ashley Johnson's daughter. Obviously
right,
they're too close in age for that, probably, but like I think they did a really good job. If you can not think about the game's character model and only like
right.
think about the show universe. And
No,
then yeah,
completely.
like you said, they're a great actor. They're like they knock it out of the park. It's awesome.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think basing anything kind of like trying to get something one for one, it's never going to be the best outcome in terms of casting actors. And keep in mind, Ellie was originally Elliot Page, formerly Ellen Page. It's like art imitating life, imitating art. There's kind of several layers to it, and it's, at a certain point you kind of have to separate that aspect of you're never going to get the perfect, you know, visually the perfect looking person to match the game exactly. And
Yeah.
looking at it performance based, I mean, they're perfectly cast.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone can still find the original E3 footage, but I do believe Elliot Page reached out to Naughty Dog and was like, you can't have a character look that much like me. And they gave
Yeah,
Ellie an updated
it was
model
like
from
straight
then
up
on out.
from like Juno
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really, really like blatant.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I think it was confusing too because there was that game by the people who made Detroit Become Human that also had Elliot Page in it at the same time. So
Hmm.
people were like confused, like, wait, was that this game or
Yeah,
that,
which is also a great game, but yeah,
Yeah, what Beyond Two Souls was that the name of it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Beyond Two Souls, yeah, really great like choice based game, but um, yeah. So I do want to dig into like the differences between the scripts and kind of the pacing of
Mm.
this first episode
Well,
between
there's one major, huge
yeah.
difference in presentation. Um, so for the TV, right, people will just say how it's presented here, and then in the second half, we'll talk about how it's different. But we get introduced to these new characters, Abby, Owen, the rest of Abby's friends. I can't remember their
I
names
don't know their names, yeah.
off the top of my head, but they're what's left of the Fireflies that Joel kills, and they want revenge, and understandably so. I thought they did a really good job portraying what this would be like for people who like survived this massacre of like, we could have gone after Joel, but we were trying to save the people who he shot, and oh, we couldn't save any of them. So like, fuck, like, what's the point? We could have just gone after him, and when we do find him, we're gonna kill him, and it's gonna be slow, and we're gonna,
Hmm.
inflict everything that he's put onto us with all this. And when did that like little pan out of the whole graveyard, there were a lot of graves in there.
Yeah, yeah. No, that was to be honest, I think that was one of the strongest scenes in the episode. Um, and I think Caitlin Dever is just such a perfect casting for Abby. And oh my god, the amount of hate she might get is I don't know. I want people to chill out. I
I
just
don't think it'll be as bad as the show. So I was talking to Liam with
yeah,
this, and I was like, I feel like people who are watching the show are probably people who've watched so many shows that it's like they're not going to be precious about
yeah,
characters. You know what I mean? In the same way that video game people are, where it's very unusual what they do in part two. And we won't spoil that, like I said, in the
right,
second half of the episode, but I think it'll be okay. I hope, anyways.
yeah. Yeah, and I guess just for anybody who hasn't played the game and is listening to this, it's not getting into the specifics why people hated Abby's character. It's just that she was very unliked, and it was kind of almost like um, a sexist. there were kind of I think sexist undertones to kind of the memes and the
Well, there's
conversation
that
around
too. Um,
it.
Abby in the game, very muscular. Caitlin
Yeah.
Devers, not, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Craig Mazin or maybe it was one of the showrunners was talking about how they kind of didn't it wasn't that sort of Marvel thing where it's like, oh, you need to get buff in order to like play this character. I think they just kind of said like, listen, it's not integral to this character in the TV show, even though in the game it is. I think it was a great choice in the game. I mean, it kind of says a lot about her. Um, but I kind of agree. I don't think it's totally essential in this case.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the thing is, the body, like, Abby in the game is like an amalgamation of like three different women. Like, they had a body model whose like full time job is being a bodybuilder, being like the physique. Then they had
Mhm.
another person for the face, and then they had an actual actress um voice Abby. Like, it's
Mhm.
hard to find one person who can be
Yeah.
all of that in real life.
It's true. It's true. So yeah, going back to that scene, I mean, I think it really kind of it sets the tone for the season, and it was so nicely written, and I believe that's the kind of scene you don't get that in the games at all, right? Yeah. So
I mean, not the I don't think we get a scene of them burying. I know, like, we have a similar scene where they're talking about how they have to go after him, and they're like, we have no idea who this person is. Like,
mhm.
uh, the most we know is that he's traveling with a girl who has a bite, but it's not like being infected. Like, that's all we know about this. You know.
Right. Yeah, and I'm curious what you think about kind of like revealing this information at this point. I mean, it's literally it's basically kind of like the first scene, because the scene before that is what we had in season one, which was the
Mm.
last kind of the last shot, the last scene. So we start this season off really setting the tone of actions have consequences. Yeah, I'm curious what you thought about that.
Yeah, I think it's very different. I think obviously in the game we aren't revealed Abby's motives at this point. Um, I think it works better for a TV show to know the motives unless you're gonna make like an entire season around revealing like who Abby is and why. I talked to Ben. I don't remember if this was on a show or after we recorded one of the shows, being like, well, if you want to have this reveal, you probably have to commit to like an entire season arc where you're
Mhm.
like following Abby as Abby's trying to get to Jackson, and you like slowly figure out why she's going there, and then like the very last scene of that arc, and probably like one of the last scenes of the season, is her like getting to Jackson, and then you like maybe you could do a flashback showing her finding like her father's dead body, and then it like all comes together like, oh, she's gonna
Right.
kill, you know, Joel. That's what she wants. Like, I think the probably didn't want to stretch this to an entire season, you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, as soon as we saw the giraffes, I actually thought it was going to be the scene where Abby is kind of like, you know, well, I guess trying to avoid spoilers here, but I thought it was going to be a different flashback. While still kind of showing who Abby is, I thought it might be a different kind of sequence taken from the games.
Yeah, I
So
did too. I thought it was that scene as well.
yeah,
But
yeah. So it was interesting to kind of get right into this, and it really, like I said, I like this scene a lot. I think it's really well done, but especially the performances. But I want to kind of bring it back, and this is like a point that I'm going to raise like in probably every single episode. But and it's kind of something I mentioned earlier, where the show loves to dig deeper on every single character except for Joel and Ellie, and it's kind of like to me, like with the game is about their relationship, and yet every chance we get, we kind of follow other characters, and even just kind of seeing this as the basically the first scene in this season, I was kind of almost frustrated because it's like what I really want from the show is to connect these two characters and set up kind of the base for what this season's what's going to unfold in this season, because you really do need that foundation. um,
you didn't feel that the therapy scene was like digging into Joel? I mean, I think like we kind of get Joel as like he has this bad relationship with Ellie. We kind of know why.
mhm.
Tommy knows why,
Right.
presumably. Um, he can't even like bring himself to be honest with the therapist about why they've had this breakup. Like he still needs to like be, in his heart of hearts, be like, I did the right thing. Like,
Mhm.
and I think that shows a lot of like Joel probably knows deep down what he did was incredibly fucked up, but he can't allow himself to admit that because like
Mhm.
then he'd feel guilty about keeping Ellie alive, and he would hate himself in the same way that Ellie seemingly hates him for doing it. And I think like that was effective. I think too, like and I wonder, again, hard to say because of spoilers, but I wonder if this refugee thing is being set up to kind of include an arc within the show that they initially planned to do in the game, but they didn't end up doing. And Joel's, very anti refugee, and like, it makes sense because anytime more people come, it could be somebody who he's either screwed over or has information on what he's done.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I mean, it's they could completely kind of stray from the game in certain ways. And I mean, it's kind of like the butterfly effect. It's like you kind of, if you change one thing, you kind of have that freedom of going in any direction. Um, I don't know. Going back to the therapy, I think this was actually my biggest gripe with this episode, and I just think personally, and this is just to let the audience know, I went to film school and I've kind of like studied these things and writing and these kind of devices. And one of the things I learned is that you don't really like just include a therapist just to kind of get exposition out there. To me, it's like unless your film or movie is about therapy and kind of psychotherapy, um, I to me that having that device just kind of strikes me as like lazy exposition kind of filmmaking. And I think in this instance, I kind of stand by that because to me, Joel wouldn't even really see a therapist. Like having how it's set up in the game, and this is not really a spoiler because it's quite literally the first thing you see. Joel is talking to Tommy about this, and the conversation is basically almost identical. I mean, people have kind of done a comparison of basically the same shot of Joel saying like I saved her. Um, so to me, it would have made much more sense for him to talk to his brother and kind of talk to someone he's comfortable with. I think Catherine O'Hara is like an incredible actress and she's great in this scene and you kind of get that like double-edged sort of like I'm trying to help you but I also fucking hate your guts. It's like a really interesting character dynamic, but at the same time I think it's like done so much better in the game and I think that wasn't the right direction personally, just from like a screenwriting perspective.
I do think we're gonna get the arc of like, can Joel be honest with himself? And until he can be honest with himself, and being honest with himself, being honest with the therapist, about
Mm-hmm.
what he actually did, he's not going to be able to mend the fence with Ellie because like that is the thing now. Like, do you understand what you did to Ellie by taking the choice out of her? Like right now he's in the I didn't do anything wrong stage, but I think his arc this season will be him accepting that he didn't, you know, it's a complicated situation, obviously, but like at the very least, he kind of took it out of Ellie's hands. And we see like later in the episode, Joel's still in that mode when that man, you know, calls them like, a slur. Ellie's gonna stand up for herself, but Joel takes that away from Ellie. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Joel is like, I'm protecting you, but it's like, okay, but you're like protecting Ellie too much to the point where Ellie doesn't feel like she can be herself or stand up for herself or fight her own battles, which comes back around to that training scene where Ellie like is kind of too over ambitious with like the fighting and like, you know, when she feels like she's losing, she kind of overcompensates to get back in control even after the guy taps. And then later on the expedition where they have to fight the clickers, Ellie puts herself in a really, really bad spot just because Ellie's trying to prove to herself that like she doesn't need anyone's help or protection, you know?
Yeah, no, and it's great. I think those are like sort of the plot points, or at least within the first episode, that are like really strong in setting up her character, and like I said, like in such a much more layered way. Um, but I mean, let's talk about that scene where the after that at the dance, she kisses Dina, who is another actress very well cast, I think, in this role. We're kind of like talking about that in our group chat. She's very charming in it. I think that's
Yeah,
that's kind of what you
really
want. Like,
good.
yeah. So in that scene in the game, let's talk about that for a moment. So it's almost like shot for shot the same. It's really beautiful. The music is actually identical. They got the same exact band. Where in the show it's kind of cool because you actually see this band like playing and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
people who
yeah.
actually wrote this music, and I think even the composer of The Last of Us, the game's music is there kind of on this like little guitar. It's really cool. Just if you can kind of spot these things if you're familiar with it. But um, where the two scenes diverge really is when the kind of like hateful guy comes in and cusses them out, and then Joel comes in the game. Joel kind of just puts his arm on the guy, like you know, maybe gives him a bit of a shove. I kind of have to like watch it back again, but he
Mm,
doesn't push him down and he doesn't like get that aggressive. Whereas in the
yeah,
show, this is Joel from season one. He's not old man
yeah.
to me in my mind. I'm like he's not old man Joel, and he kind of goes back to your point of like this guy kind of in a way hasn't grown in the way that Ellie has in these
He
in these
can't. He
years.
won't let himself. He's
Yeah,
stuck in what he did.
yeah.
You know.
This like violent past. He's still in it,
Yeah.
and I think that was like that was an interesting choice and an interesting diversion from the game. And yeah, I was curious about how you felt about all of that and these changes.
Yeah. I mean, I love the scene. I loved Dina's actress. She was in that new Alien movie, which I thought was really good.
Oh yeah, that's
Kind
right.
of playing like a very similar character to Dina, which is funny.
Yeah.
I know that the screenwriter of that said that he was playing The Last of Us 2 when he wrote uh that Alien movie, so he's very inspired by it. So all comes around to them casting her here. But yeah, I do. I think it makes it a lot more of a spectacle with Joel like fucking decking him. Um, and that makes it more embarrassing for Ellie to have like this situation that like Ellie would probably was gonna be like fuck off. Ellie wasn't
Mhm.
gonna attack him. Um,
Right.
but then like Joel comes in and fucking decks him, and that is like this is a whole huge thing, and
Yeah.
like Joel still doesn't understand, you know, but he's like, "Are you okay?" And she's like I fuck off, like I could have handled that myself, you know,
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a good thing that Joel's an ally. I guess that's one
ally,
takeaway.
yes,
But maybe like too much so. But I think it's to that point. I think it was a good choice because it really kind of shows these cycles of violence, and like we just said, Joel clearly is kind of stuck in um, that post-apocalyptic mindset of like this guy is a threat to my daughter, quote unquote, and you know I'm gonna destroy him right here on the fucking dance floor. It's yeah, it's I mean it's a great character moment, and I think was actually a good stray from the game.
yeah, and I mean it's very you know, gay people in real life have to deal with this kind of stuff a lot, and then like there are well-meaning, well-intentioned straight people who like do stuff like this, and it's just like it's making it worse for like me. I get it. You're trying to do the right thing, but this is like worse in the long run.
Yep, yep.
You're making it about you more than
Yeah.
me.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. Yeah. You should probably go to therapy
Yeah.
if you're like doing that. Something like deeper down is going on. But yeah. So I don't know. I think just my impressions from this. Just kind of wrap up the non spoilers. My impression is that like the scenes lifted directly from the game are working so well, and it's
Mm,
really like I'm in awe. Just I mean, there's even just the little details of like the posters in Ellie's room. Like that's something you literally see that poster as you're like going through. I can't remember if it's the
mm.
first game or second game that kind of blend for me, but these little things and these little details of like her knife and all of
I
that is
love
working so
her
well.
workbench in
Yeah,
her room is like, oh yeah, this is just like the game.
exactly. It's like I don't know how much um, we're gonna see later down the road of her like in that element of. So I'm so glad that they included that at least in this episode of like
Mm,
her cleaning the gun, and because that just to kind of for anyone who hasn't played the game, it's a big mechanic in the game of like finding a workbench, cleaning your gun, upgrading them, and everything like that. So it was really cool to see that. And the thing that I'm kind of going to be watching out for as this season goes on is really like looking out for those scenes where it does diverge, and in my mind, where like Craig Mazin, the showrunner, along with the creator Neil Druckmann, where Craig Mazin kind of like strays from that and has his own writing. And to me, the two scenes in this season that sort of screamed that was the one between Joel and Dina. I don't think we even like really had any scenes between them in
Don't
the
even know if they know each other in the game.
yeah, that was like an interesting departure, and I didn't think the writing was that strong in that scene specifically, personally. And then the other scene is, of course, the therapist, and
Mhm.
to me, like in my my humble opinion, to me those were the two weakest scenes in this show. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see where it diverges, and I'm still going to try to look at it objectively, but it's kind of where I'm
Yeah, I
at.
want to also give a shout out to young Bezzino, the actor who plays Jesse. I thought he was really good as Jesse.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I really liked Jesse in the game, so I was like very excited to see how he'd be portrayed. And I just think he did a really good job. The casting's so good. Like
yeah.
they
It
really
really
found
is.
like all these great actors.
I know
You
because
know.
he was in the show Beef on Netflix, which was
Oh,
actually my
nice. Yeah.
favorite show like a year or two ago. It's just like such a great like one season, complete arc. And Ali Wong is like phenomenal. He plays like a kind of dumbass like fuckboy in that show,
Right. Right.
and so seeing him in this other role, I'm like, oh my god, this is a totally different
He's like
actor.
competent and like
Yeah.
trying to keep people alive. Yeah.
Yeah, because he was perfectly cast in that show.
Mhm.
He's such like a relatable like it's like your dumbass cousin or something. He's
Right.
like a
Yeah.
real person, and so seeing him in this role like he looked completely different. But
Yeah.
he's great.
Yeah. He was good, and I enjoyed the other background actors in the little posse that they sent out. The cat girl, that was a very fun scene where Dina's
Mhm.
like, like, are you going out with her as you're the only lesbians? It's just like that's great. Which I do think is also something. I mean, the apocalypse picking are slimmer than ever, but that is
Yeah,
a real life thing too, where people will be like, "Hey, this person's also gay. Are you?" It was like, "No." People, I was like, "All right, well." But
right.
I liked the other two guys. They were just like very like NBC ish, like
Oh yeah, completely.
got the jean jacket and the cowboy hats on. I think
Yeah,
one of them had like one line in it, but
right,
like
right.
I don't know, they just felt like they were from the game,
Yeah,
like these
definitely.
background characters.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I mean, seeing the new the Stalker, that was
That
just I
was
was on the
fucking
edge of my
scary,
seat.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
That's
god.
the thing that really does separate The Last of Us from other zombie stuff is like these special infected that
Hmm.
in the game they're scary too. You can't hear them. Like a big mechanic in the game is like being able to hear where the infected are. Um, you can't do that with them. So you're just like ambushed by them all the time. And they're fucking spooky. They're crying and shit. Like,
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the thing with The Last of Us, the game, and I kind of wish they had more infected in the first season, which I
yeah,
do think they heard
same.
that note from a lot of people, and they're gonna kind of tackle that in this season. At least I heard that in an interview.
Yeah.
But
It was really like the one scene of them coming out of the ground where it's like, oh
yeah,
shit, this is like insane. And then the rest of it's like, it's fine. Like you
yeah,
can
it's just like
travel
an
across the country easily.
empty travel
They're just
across
sleeping on
Canada.
the forest floor. Like it's all good.
Right, right, exactly. So yeah, I hope we do see more like very scary because in the game you really like every infected is a genuine threat, and you kind of like
Yeah.
the materials are very sparse. Sometimes you don't have enough bullets, you don't have enough shivs. It's like
Yeah, your
very
shivs
scary.
break. Like
Hmm.
it's just like fuck. Like what am I gonna do?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, so that was good. I really loved the design of the stalker where obviously it was one of the ones that attacked the bear because her face was all like torn up and like the
Hmm.
cordyceps was like coming out of like where her nose used to be. Like I was like,
Hmm.
oh man, this is like real horror.
Yeah, Oh yeah, no, it was awesome. That was maybe my my favorite part. So good.
And like in like the cordyceps like coming out like towards Ellie, coming out like up from it is like the cordyceps is very interesting in the show compared to the games where
Hmm.
obviously you don't want to have a whole show. I'm sure we talked about it in the first season with like everyone in gas masks. So
Right.
now they had to do something, and I do like it. And they had the scene with the sparkler getting onto the roots with cordyceps in it, which we will talk about that more in the spoilers. Obviously, that's setting up for something. We'll,
Hmm.
I'll give my opinion on what it's setting up for. When we
Right.
get into the spoiler section.
Yeah. No. Yeah. For sure. I think. I mean, yeah. Maybe we should jump into it now. I think
All
for
right.
any listeners who haven't played the game and are you know trying to avoid spoilers about what's going to happen, this is probably the part where you can jump out and well, yeah. Thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you so much. Make sure you like, subscribe, check out our other shows on the channel. We're covering Black Mirror as well. That just came out with a new season. Very fun there. After this drops, the next day will be another Black Mirror episode. So go check that out. And yes, from here on out, spoilers about the game. We're giving you a chance. Turn it off. Okay. So yeah, what are you thinking?
I mean, I think they kind of played their cards too early. To me, it's like okay, so let's talk about Abby, right? This first season where first scene where Abby talks about wanting to kill Joel. As an audience member, if I can look at this kind of objectively, if I was watching this for the first time, I would be thinking, all right, well, Joel's probably going to kill her, like, you know,
Right.
because he's like a badass. And then they do the time skip, and I'm like, oh shit, okay, 5 years. So she hasn't done shit in 5 years.
Mhm.
And in my mind, I'd be kind of going in two directions. I'd be going like, okay, either Joel's going to kill her or she's going to kill Joel. Um, Obviously, we know which direction this goes, so like, I think
Yes.
they played their cards too early. I think it works so much better in the game when you don't really know these people might be just coming to Jackson to like to live there and to be safe. You don't know that they actually have ill intentions and are
Yeah, the
ultimately going
moment in
to
the
kill
game
them.
is surprising. It takes a
Exactly.
turn,
Exactly.
like out of
Yep.
nowhere.
Yeah, and I can't remember the exact line, but it's really like it's a very sudden thing, and I remember like because I avoided spoilers, but I played probably within like the first few days that the game came out, and I could tell the discourse online was really negative of just like what the fuck. So I was like, okay, what's gonna happen? And then once that line or that kind of like scene was going through, I was like, okay, I see why people
Yeah, this
are
is like
relating.
you got lucky, and she's like, you have no idea. I was like,
Right.
what?
That's it. Yep.
What does that mean?
Yep. Yep. And then obviously we just get that brutal scene of Joel's death. So it's like I don't know. I kind of wish the show had kind of unraveled in that same way, but
Mhm.
there's clearly some bigger choices being made, and it'll be interesting to see how they or rather like what they do with that. Yeah, yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I wonder if it's like something that they just figured works better in the game than it would have. But I do think that there was a way to do it. Like I said on this, I think if you have a whole season arc of like, I think it's hard to do what the game did, where you don't play as Abby for most of it, like the first half, and then you do play as Abby and you learn Abby's backstory and you learn to sympathize with her. I think that was a very specific thing the game wanted to do, was be
Mhm.
like, can we make you hate this character, and then by the end of the game, like at the very least be neutral, if not like them. I came out on liking Abby. Um
Yeah,
Obviously your
same.
mileage may vary. A lot of people still hate Abby,
Yeah.
um so
A lot of people
didn't
don't
work
even
for
think of this
everyone.
second. A lot of people don't even think of the second game as like canon. That's how
That's
like
insane.
that's how
That's
it
insane.
haunted by this like story plot plot
Yeah.
point, which is it's so sad to me because like that is the point of the game. It's really
Mm.
like to me it's one of the most powerful. just uses of the medium of video games. Of you are in control of these
Yeah, it was really
characters,
good. Yeah.
and so yeah, so clearly they do need to change things because it's a different. We are in a different medium now, and this is television, and this is HBO. I mean, we're talking,
Yeah, I wonder if they were like, we're gonna have her kill Joel, and then people are gonna have to sit with that for like 2 years. Will people
right,
be as on her side for 2 years, or will they just be building resentment for her for 2 years?
yeah. So that's like kind of the big question is like when will it happen? Like how soon into the season? I'm glad it didn't happen in this first episode. I that was my big question like before watching it. Um, I wonder if it'll happen next episode or maybe the one after that. Like, are they going to
Mm,
set up Abby's um, backstory a little bit and then kind of go into it? So, yeah, I don't know. They're clearly going to have to change things. In what way and what is how is the overall message going to change with this? And to bring it back to Game of Thrones, I think that's like one of those TV shows that's really character based, and when you see the Hound fighting, um, what's her name? Uh,
Brienne.
yeah, Brienne. I'm blanking on it. It's been so long, but you don't even know who to root for. You're like on the edge of your seat because you love
I know.
both these
Yeah.
characters, and I really think that should be like literally what they're striving for at the end of this season.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm really curious how they're going to get there without that sense of um, agency where you're playing as these characters and becoming empathetic actively.
Yeah, I do wonder if maybe they were just like, we have to set up the stakes for Abby right away to get the audience on her side. Because I do think it was a cool way to do it in the game. I like it. I like that they did it. I would have, how to put it, it would have been my preference to do back and forth, switching off like between Ellie and Abby instead of two giant stretches. But I recognize that wasn't the intent of the game, and I respect the game for telling the story it wanted to tell in the way it wanted to tell it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
I
it's
think
not
so.
about me. I didn't write the show. I didn't write the game. Neil Druckmann wrote it. Neil Druckmann wanted it to be this way, and I respect that that was his authorial intent for it.
Yeah, I guess I'm not quite there yet. Personally, I'm like taking out my anger on like
Well, you got to
creating.
see how the show plays out before, because
Yeah,
we both played the game. We both like the game, so like,
yeah. I
I'm
mean,
not
we
gonna
love
be
it
like,
too.
oh, just because I would have preferred a different way doesn't mean like I hate it. You know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get what you're saying. I do hate the therapist.
No, and that's fine. But you might end up by the end of the season
That's
liking
true.
it. We'll see.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to talk about while we're in the spoiler section is the infected, like you mentioned, in the pipes. What's your take on
Yeah.
that?
So my read is, remember in the first season when they explained that there's like they're all connected to like the neural net, and you have to like avoid, instead of avoiding spores, you have to avoid like the vines. I think that the vines in the pipe are probably connected through the root system of the trees to infected like pretty far away,
Hmm.
and now they know that people are in Jackson, you know
Yeah.
and that's what's going to cause the horde to come, because we already said like there are a lot of infected around, but now the infected are like, oh, there are people here. We can eat them.
Right. Right. Yeah. 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 I'm like wondering why, because this pipe deal, this whole thing is not in the game really. You just kind of they just stumble, like the horde just kind of arrives,
Yeah, it
right?
just happens. It's a zombie thing,
Yeah.
we both read the Walking Dead comics. Sometimes hordes just happen.
Yeah, it just gradually happen off screen, and then it's like, oh fuck. But yeah, so I do think yeah, having like that defined in that way is cool and kind of adds some interesting lore. I'm also like, how necessary is it? But like you said, like I guess we'll see within the coming episodes. But I'm also like, if I opened a pipe and I saw that shit, I would probably like just rip it out right away. You know, like I don't know why they
right
just kind
away.
of like
Yeah.
left it, and like you even see like at the end of the pipe, just like the weeds coming out. I'd be like, I would probably just like burn that day of, you know. I don't know,
No,
just
yeah,
love the
I get you.
way.
Because I know like some people have been like, oh, are they going to get infected by the pipe? And it's like, I'd sure hope that they would clean it out before putting water through it. Like, come
like,
on.
yeah,
Uh, it's
just drink
fine. We'll just drink this. No, but I do want it. So before, when I was like trying to allude to it, so Neil Druckmann talked about in that documentary they did about the game
it.
that the initial idea was that Abby's group was going to come to Jackson as refugees and infiltrate it and figure out who Joel is and then, do it. But they decided to do it how they did it, where Joel stumbles upon Abby, and I think that's totally fine for the game. I do wonder if maybe they'll incorporate that story somehow, where like Joel and Tommy will save Abby's group, or at least Abby, and then Abby will bring them to the lodge. Um, Also, my other thing is like, is there a chance that Jackson just gets completely fucked up by the horde? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
that'd be interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like all of these ideas. You know, the possibilities are are really intriguing, and I think actually they appeal to me more than how it plays out in the game, which I think is perfect for the game and for what it is. And it's kind of like you need to play the game. You don't want to just watch these cutscenes of like all these things happening, and you know you got to get to like what the inciting incident is to start the game. But in a TV show, that's not the case. You're watching everything unfold. So to me, it would make sense. I mean, it would be pretty interesting if Abby kind of like lived in Jackson for a little while and kind of integrated, and then eventually killed Joel. You know, I think that would be kind of interesting. But we'll see. It would also be very exciting to kind of get the sequence of just like Abby's group arriving, Horde, them being
Mhm.
locked in, killing Joel. You know, like it would just be fucking balls to the walls. Like,
Yeah,
if
because
it played out that way.
like talking to people, it's like, okay, where does this season finish? And it's
Mhm.
like, I've heard some people be like, well, it's gonna finish in the theater. It's like it just feels like
Mhm.
that's too far in the storyline. Like if we are getting Abby as more of an active protagonist throughout, then
Mhm.
that's a lot of episodes away, in my opinion.
Yeah,
You know,
no, I agree. I
like
think that
that's
would be
the
cool.
end of the story. It's the middle of the game, but it's the end of the
Yeah.
storyline.
No, I don't
you
think they're
know,
gonna, especially kind of judging from season one, where they really powered through the first game. In my opinion, too quickly. I think they easily could have split it up into two seasons and really developed Joel and Ellie's relationship. But I just think, based on what we've seen, I really do think season two is just going to be the second game in its entirety, and they're probably going to cut out certain things. And um, you know, I don't know. I think at least or rather at the end of season two, they need Abby to be a very likable character who you root for the same way you
Mhm.
root for the Hound, the same
Right?
that,
Yeah.
that kind of thing where it's like you are almost like equal. You like these people equally. That's really where they need to end it, no matter where they are in the story.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we'll get like flashbacks to Seattle, their group going there, set up the stakes of what's in Seattle with the wolves and the Seraphites.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which I'm very excited for.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, sorry. I'm so excited to see Jeffrey Wright
Oh
reprise
yeah,
his role. Like I probably more excited than anything to see him like get more, because apparently there was a lot more for him in the game and they had to cut it out for like timing, which is
oh
like
really?
that
Yeah,
sucks because you get this like great actor, Oscar
yeah,
winning actor now, right? Didn't he
yeah,
win an Oscar recently? Like, or at
yeah.
least nominated for
Maybe
one?
Emmy or something. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
So like you get this really talented actor and you don't use him to like his full potential. Hopefully they'll be able to correct that with this adaptation and give him some like, stuff to chew on for that character.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that, and I can totally see that. I kind of forgot that they didn't have enough of him in the game because he is such an interesting character, but he really is only in like I don't know 2 scenes to my
Yeah,
memory.
it's
Like
nothing. It's nothing.
it's really not a lot, and you kind of maybe you get some lore through like other characters or something, but it's like come on, it's Jeffrey Wright, like put that fucking guy like on screen.
It was a little bit like, why do you even have him in this game
Right.
if this is all there is?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, now that I'm like, as we're talking about, I'm like, there's so much in part two. Like you said, and The Last of Us 1, I think it is beatable in like 10 to 12 hours. The second
Mhm.
game, I played it for a week straight, and I think for me it was like 30 to 40 hours. So it's
Yeah,
3 times as long. Can they fit all of that into one season? I don't know if it would even be smart of them, really. I think they
no,
have to
I don't
split it
think
up
it
into
would.
2 seasons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, they did renew it for season three before the show
Oh,
even
okay. There you go.
premiered, so we're getting a season three.
Right.
So that's exciting. And I think this is only 8 episodes because the HBO doesn't want to spend money anymore. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, they probably spent a lot of money for the 8 episodes, but like,
it's
give
Warner
us those
Brothers,
ten
right? They're
episode
just
seasons. Come
yeah,
on.
yeah, totally. Yeah, so I mean, we'll see. I seeing that there's a season three, I'm really hoping that they don't go beyond the game because I think Neil
Yeah, I
Druckmann
don't
did
think they
say
will.
that. I
Yeah.
think Neil Druckmann did kind of allude to that. Maybe that was in his mind at one point in an interview,
Mm,
but it takes years and years to make a game and to make a television series. It's still it's months and months. It takes a long time, but it's not nearly
yeah.
as time consuming. So I can see them trying to maybe pull a Game of Thrones. Hopefully not. A lot of Game of Thrones references tonight, but
The one thing that like I would feel more comfortable is that George R. R. Martin wasn't show running Game of Thrones. Like if George
that's
R. R.
true.
Martin had been like, listen, fuck it, I'm not doing the books. I'm just gonna work on the show and
Mm-hmm.
give you
Write
guys,
it, write the dialogue
the
of it. Yeah.
actual like everything, and it's gonna be 12 seasons or whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would have been okay with that honestly, because I don't think we're actually gonna get the books
Yeah.
ever. So I would have been way more okay if they were just like, all right, George, you're in charge, full
Mm-hmm.
control, do whatever you want. Neil Druckmann is in that position here, where he's like
Yeah.
the co-writer and co-showrunner. So it's like, if Neil felt like, hey, I would love to do Last of Us 3, but I just don't have it in me to do a Last of
Mm-hmm.
Us 3, I'd be okay with him being like, I'm just continuing it with the show.
I feel the opposite way, but
Yeah,
that's just
yeah.
me. I to me those two games, and I kind of combine them into one in my head. It's top
Mm,
five for sure, maybe even top three. And I just think, yeah, it would be such a shame if he had a story in mind, which kind of judging from interviews, it doesn't seem like he really has like a message, like in the same way with the second game,
yeah.
it's an eye for an eye, this kind of this vengeance and all these like really complex themes that he wanted to tackle. It doesn't seem like he has that right now for a third game or even a season, whatever four. So yeah. Anyway, fingers crossed he doesn't do that for me personally.
Do you think we'll ever get a Last of Us Part 3?
Um, I actually do because I think the way season or the way part two ended, I think there is actually a lot more to be said about these characters, particularly Ellie, and even like her relationship to Dina and everything. I
Mm,
do think so. It's just kind of like how do you do it in like a really clever and masterful way, the way the first two games were, and like where does just like does Ellie have another? Is she like a loner? Do you kind of like have like a different character altogether? I think I almost feel
right.
like you wouldn't even follow Abby at all. Like she might not even be involved because like her story is kind of like wrapped up. But I
Mm,
think at the very least, like something with Ellie, maybe like old lady Ellie, and then like she has her own kind of like kid, and maybe something with the immunity. Who knows? But
mm,
I like I The Walking Dead is kind of the show slash series where even in the comics, like it's gone the furthest I think within like zombie apocalypse, like let's go like let's go 20 years into the future. What does the world look like? And it would be interesting to see what the Last of Us, what that universe looks like if they really wanted to go kind of. I mean, it's already been what 25 years or something.
Yeah, right.
So it would be interesting to see like even further down, like how humans adapt and everything like that.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny that like the Walking Dead comic was like, here's the definitive like future, and
Yeah.
then the show because AMC just like no, we refuse to ever like do that.
Right.
It's zombies forever. We're never
Yeah.
doing the part where they're like pretty much all wiped out and everyone's living like a somewhat normal life.
Yeah, like a perfectly ideal like farming, like almost like like a very grassroots, just ideal living
Yeah.
after going through hell and stuff. But in the show, it's like let's go to France. Let's see what's happening in France. Let's go, let's go to all these different places.
Let's go to France. Yeah.
You know,
I mean, yeah. It's crazy to me, and tangent for a little, but like, crazy to me they went to France and didn't include Rick's brother, even though in the comics Rick's brother's in France, and
yeah,
like, yeah, he like dies in a single issue story arc, but like, whatever, just make him alive and just
yeah,
make him be
exactly.
Rick's brother.
That would have been
But
awesome.
I guess they didn't do that. But um,
No.
yeah, no, I think it's just the one thing that really hangs me up is like video games take so long to make, and
Mhm.
they're working on that intergalactic the Heretic Prophet game, which looks
Mhm.
great, and I'm super excited to play that. But it's like, okay, that's probably 2 years away at the fastest, probably like the very end of the PlayStation 5 life cycle, like The Last of Us Part 2 was the end of the PS4.
Mhm.
Then what, 5 years, 5 more years for part 3 of The Last of Us? Like, is that,
Yeah,
does Neil even want to do that? How old's Neil? He's like in his 40s, right? Does he even like want to spend
50s or
the
something. Yeah,
next, yeah, like that's the one hard part for me is like these games take forever to make.
yeah, he's 46. Yeah, I know. I think you're right. I mean, having personally gone through really long periods of waiting, I mean, I was an OG Shenmue fan from literally that
Yeah,
game came
right.
out in like 2000, or I think in Japan it came out in 1999. I played it when I was like probably like 12 years old. I
You
loved
played
that
that
game.
on the Dreamcast, right?
Yep, played on
Yeah,
Dreamcast. And then Shenmue 2 came out like
so
very
sick.
shortly. It was actually kind of created on the same engine, and everything. And I think even in Japan it came out on the Dreamcast. It was that, you
Mm.
know, early.
Would you
And
play
then
that one on the PlayStation or Xbox?
that one, I think it was only on Xbox in the US.
Mm.
Yeah, played on
Yeah.
Xbox, which was kind of annoying because just to, I don't know, it was very sad, very small side tangent, but you can play those games back to get back and carry all of your items into the next game, which was like really ahead of its
Mm.
time in fucking,
Yeah.
1999. It was so cool, but obviously can't do that from Dreamcast to Xbox. Anyway,
Yeah.
um,
Did they ever? This is fine. It's a video game. We're in
yeah,
the. Is did they ever make a Shenmue 1 for the Xbox so that you could do
no,
that? No.
no,
Ah,
no, they never did. So it's
that's a
just
missed
strictly on Xbox.
opportunity.
They did do an HD remaster, so you could do that on like what was it, maybe Xbox Series S or something. It was like
Hmm.
a
That's
very
cool.
recent
Yeah.
thing within the last few years. But anyway, I bring that up because Shenmue 3 took, I think it was like over 20 years to make, or
Mm.
something around that. And I honestly thought, I went through the rest of my life, high school, college, just thinking like, okay, that's an
It's never
unfortunate,
happening.
unrealized dream. I'm never gonna get
Yeah.
Shenmue 3, even though Shenmue 2 ends on a literal cliffhanger. It's just like, oh shit, this is gonna be awesome.
Oh.
Can't wait to
Yeah.
continue the story. And then Shenmue 3, and I'm anyway, not talking about Shenmue too much, but I'm used to waiting. I would gladly wait like, another 10 years to play The Last of Us 3 if that ever comes out, and share it with my kids by then, I guess. But,
Right. Yeah.
you know, because they'll be like teenagers. They'll be old
Yeah.
enough.
I have the whole collection. One of the things too, Naughty Dog just keeps releasing The Last of Us 1 and 2 over and over. Um, they just announced a new complete edition where it's both games in one.
No way.
for the
Oh, no,
PlayStation 5. It's like, oh my god, guys, come on.
that's crazy. Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah, it
I've played
was,
the first one several times. I've only played the second one once, but because I don't have a PS5. But yeah,
yeah, right.
I would, if, if that comes out, maybe I will just play them both, especially now that we're watching the show. But yeah,
Yeah. I
milking
think
it.
I think the second one's on PC now. If you want to play
Okay,
it
yeah.
there,
I mean, maybe we just
mods.
maybe
Yeah.
just keep giving Naughty Dog money, and they'll eventually make a third game.
Please, please, yeah, but yeah. All in all, solid start to the season. Excited to see where it goes. Excited to hear what people think of it. Um, Historically, conversation around The Last of Us, very normal, very chill. I'm sure it will be
Yeah.
the same thing with this. Everyone will be very, very fun and not take it too seriously, right? Tamor?
Yeah, I mean that's famously what has happened in the past. I wouldn't expect anything different,
Yeah.
especially on
Oh
Reddit.
man.
Let's be real.
Yeah, so I do. I did, in preparation for this week, I went on the Last of Us 2 subreddit. Holy
Mhm.
shit. Like,
Yeah.
if I was still that mad about something after 5 years, I'd have to go see a therapist and trade them weed to you know
Seriously,
give me a
I know,
diagnosis.
right?
Like, this is too much. You're too upset.
Yeah, yeah, especially over like a video game that I think a lot of them didn't even play because they were just like so offended deeply over like something that they're unfortunately never gonna experience, even though it's an incredible game. But
Crazy, crazy more. These people
yeah,
are out there.
I gotta go on Reddit and check it out now.
It's horrible. Prepare yourself for just like the most toxic environment of all time.
Great, great.
Because I didn't know. I was just in the Last of Us subreddit this whole time. Just being like, oh,
Right,
some people like the game, some people don't. That's normal. And then
right.
I like found there's a Last of Us 2 subreddit, and it's just like the
Unofficial. Right.
worst.
Yeah.
I can't imagine Naughty Dog wants to associate itself with that.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. All
crazy
right.
times.
Yeah.
All right, Demore, anything you want to promote before we get on out of here?
No, no, just subscribe to Wicked Good Everything, to Better Radio, all these projects that we are doing, and thank you for listening.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at the fake BMAR, SBMARR. I'm also on Blue Sky. Don't use it too much, but I am on it in case it ever does take off.
Yeah.
It's hard because Twitter's full of Nazis, and Blue Sky is full of like people who take stuff too seriously. It's like we need to find a happy medium of you know. But yeah, like Tamor said, subscribe to the main channel. Just put a video on how factions never came to fruition for The Last of Us Part 2 and why that is. Actually had some nice comments on it, which is, great. And gained like a decent amount of subscribers from it, even though it didn't get like tons of views. So it's like, all right, like, I'll take that. Yeah, slowly, brick by brick, building it up.
Mhm.
We just started a podcast covering Black Mirror called A Look in the Mirror. First episode went out, I guess, yesterday when this comes out by the time recording today, but go check it out there. Covered Common People, the first episode of season 7. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, we have a sports channel where you get sports. We have a nerd and pop culture channel on Those Fake Nerds. And this is, of course, Better Radio, which hosts all of our podcasts. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you in the next one.